welcome back to what we've been calling the ET Roundtable. And we really have a bunch of regulars that we've developed here over the last few weeks. And we have Marla Lombard, incredible psychic intuitive. We have Nadi Hana, who's an expert in multidimensional realities. And we have Elisabet Sithourus, evolutionary biologist. I would say you're able to bridge science and spirit, Elisabet. You're able to meet those two worlds. And I'm Alan Steinfeld. And what were you going to say then, Elisabet, about what you've been thinking about?
Well, I've been thinking about how interesting it is to have a biological lineage, right? Our family lineages. And then to have our karmic lineages of incarnations as a sort of separate lineage. And then I loved what Carolyn Cory said in your book in the last chapter about our also having ET lineages. Wow. And that's something I would love to explore, and maybe Nadi can help us with that. Maybe Maria will have some insights, but personally, I would love to know what my ET lineage is because I've explored the other two.
Well, there is a woman, Linda Bachman, who helps people with their ET lineages. But what do you get? How do you find out, Nadi, about your ET histories?
Oh, and I know a lot of people. I want to direct you to, you had Jacqueline Smith. What was her last name? Jacqueline?
Yeah, Jacqueline Smith, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I think she's really a great resource for finding out and, having clarity about ET lineages. It's not something that I know that I could do for others or connect with others, but I just know through my own channels and requests and pleadings with my guides to, connect. I simply have a sense of resonance. I don't have anyone saying definitively, oh, yes, you are Andromedan, or yes, you have roots as a mantis, and one of the founders, right? Like there is simply a resonance. So I just started diving deep and then found the ones, I have some kind of Syrian connection with the Syrians, and it's mostly my explorations and then resonance. So it's not anything that I do that I can see for you, Elisabet, in terms of your lineage. And I love finding out about that. So I would say Jacqueline or whoever it was that you mentioned, Alan. Those are the pros. I'm not an external pro.
But let me ask you: do different star lineages have different traits that that we could recognize in our human beingness?
Yes, that is for sure.
Like
the Pleiadians are really known for this sort of effervescence, light, almost bubbly presence where you just feel uplifted. But that wouldn't surprise me, Elisabet. That would fit. The Arcturians are known for sort of I won't say hard intellectual edge, but like a real value of the sciences and the, I guess you could just say the sciences, but also, like Alan was saying, that blend, Elisabet, of the science and the spirituality, right? There's supremely high consciousness, and so I would say yes and no. Like we tend to say oh, these are the Pleiadians, but remember, these are star systems with billions of planets and many, many different inhabitants as wide as the human race and beyond. So when we go, oh, we're Pleiadian, we want to have a certain category, and it doesn't quite work to me. I've never been able to make a direct connection between a trait of mine and a civilization.
But how did you connect with the Arcturians? Because that seems to come up for you a lot, Nadi. So.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. They were coming up a lot. they just showed up everywhere all the time. I had people who channeled them coming to me. I had books, I had information, and there was like this deluge of trying to help me understand that I'm directly connected to them and that they're informing me and that they're activating me to share ET experience or information.
Does this make sense, Marla? Are you tuning into this at all, or is this too out there?
I love that question. So, well, I often answer your questions with a question, Alan, and I can speak to what Nadi's saying, but what does an ET lineage mean? Because lineage speaks to me as being linear in time. So
could mean that your last incarnation was on one of those civilizations and you bring in traits. It's a soul lineage, really. That's how I see it. So, there's billions of planets to incarnate on, and it's like you incarnate into a tradition here, you take on that, or maybe your last lifetime, you take on certain characteristics of, if you were an artist, you carry it with you on the soul level. So it shows up here. That's what I feel. So if you're incarnating from a star lineages, there's certain aspects that you bring because the soul records everything. That's how I understand it. Mm-hmm. So but maybe if you're not familiar with the types, and it's like wine tasting. I went to a wine tasting, and I tasted the wine and I thought, oh yeah, that tastes like wine, because I don't drink much wine. And then what do they call those people who tell you how to taste wine? The
sommeliers.
Yeah, the sommelier. So this woman said, do you taste the fruity flavor? Do you taste the dryness? Do you feel that? Do you feel like that is acid? And so it just tasted like wine until the attention or the distinction was brought to my awareness, and then I could distinguish it. But for an untrained palate, it just all tastes the same. So it's like this in this field. It's like once you make a distinction, I think this is a big landmark thing. They talk about distinctions, but the distinctions bring recognition and identification. But so I don't know what the distinctions are for Arcturians or Pleiadians but
they're vibrational. Yeah.
What? They're
vibrational, right? So it's learning to speak the language of your extrasensory perception, where, certain guides or angels will have a frequency, the Arcturians have a frequency, and typically how they show up in terms of synchronicities, or, are they talking to you in the dream time, or are you journeying, and do you have, specific, civilizations that show up? I mean, the Arcturians have a particular way, technically they communicate in holographic thought forms, and they just download these blocks of thought. And I don't yet have I don't know if I should say that, but I am developing more and more my skill set to interpret that information. I don't consider myself a full-on channel who can just transmit, but I learned the language, and they learned to speak ways that I can hear.
Well, what I would say about Elisabet, although I don't know her very well, I've known her a couple of years, but you came in, I would think Elisabet was really sharp mind, inquisitive, very science and matter of fact, along with this very aware spiritual aspect. And that, I think, is a lineage of some system where you came in with those traits because that's where you come from. Maybe that's Syrian, or I don't know. There's so many, but it's something. It's definitely something, I would say. I mean, does that make sense, Elisabet?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I've always said, I just came in with this insatiable curiosity right. about wanting to know how everything works, and everything means everything, no experience excluded. And I've always most resonated with people who were the most far out, sort of who had the most unusual experiences, because I figured that if one person could do these things, then it was a birthright for everybody, in a sense, And I came to using this keyboard metaphor of matter, energy, spirit to show how, there's nothing to integrate about science and spirit. The problem is that we took them apart. And, wow. And once you get beyond linear time, and it's always now, none of us have ever been outside of now, right? Mm-hmm. And the rest is our imagination of a remembrance of past and a thinking about future and stuff, but it's always now. So in that always now, what does lineage mean, right? In that, and what Nadi and Marla are talking about is this more, communion doesn't require language. Our human languages have become linear, especially when we invented writing. And even speaking, you have to speak one word at a time, right? So you're forced into linearity with our human languages, but I wouldn't expect any ET. I mean, I suppose some of them can do it. Obviously, some of them live among us and speak our languages perfectly well. But their language, their natural languages are, we call it holographic. I have a friend who sees the whole world holographically. It took her till she was 40 years old till she could see what she calls our cardboard world of surfaces, right? Because she could always see through everything. And she had to teach herself. It was hard. So she spent most of her childhood with animals because they were easy to talk to, trees and stuff. Humans were more difficult because, well, for one thing, if you're a kid and you have such what we call abilities, special abilities, you don't know as a child that other people aren't reading each other's minds. You don't know that they're not all transparent to each other. And that one of the things we've developed as humans is this ability to not be transparent to others, which allows for a lot of deceit, right? And so that's something we have to cope with in the human species, is an extraordinary amount of deceit. And I just read something that was about, biology is just full of deceit. It's what the animal world does all the time, Well,
where'd you read that? What's that?
People write all kinds of things. It used to be, to defend our aggressiveness based on our biological lineage and stuff. Now it's that deceit, I guess, to show that nothing wrong with human deceit. Right? It's just who we are. Anyway, there's so much to think about in these things, but I just loved working with a lot of indigenous cultures. They're all different, but they all have their sciences, identifiable by definition as sciences. And so I was a co-founder of something called the Worldwide Indigenous Science Network, where we were trying to teach people in our culture, that the indigenous people also do science, right? That there are loads of sciences all over the world, all based on different stories about what kind of a cosmos and earth we live in. So I love all this cross-cultural stuff, from cross-culture with, I want to know my cross-cultural relations with ETs, as well as with my soul incarnations and other things.
It's great that you're so open to it, but is it necessary? I'm just curious. To have an ET or cultural, here we are present to bring in, may help understand ourselves better. Or, it's interesting if someone said, I had a Pleiadian connection, but I don't know what to do with that. I'm saying it's like, okay, thanks. Maybe, I don't know.
Come on. You asked them a lot of questions about what does that mean to your life and how does
I know, but if someone said that to me, I don't know. I'm curious. Maybe it does mean something. What do you think, Marla?
Well, I was thinking about two ET experiences that I had, which you've never heard me say, Ellen.
I want to hear you say it.
But one of them was the message that I read a few shows ago from a group of interstellar and interdimensional beings, they called themselves, and it was a message of hope and for us to keep going and to find our highest way of being human. And the other one, which I may have told, was about the Plains people. Do you remember that? Not that I expect you to, Ellen, you're a little busy, but it was this culture of peace.
Can you can you get the message? You want to read them again? Because there's a lot of people watching who probably
didn't see it.
I mean,
Well,
or
yeah, I'll tell
yourself.
you. Okay, I was doing a psychic reading for a client, and I saw that when she's young, it's not going to happen soon, but when she dies, she will not go to the place where most of us go. She will go back to her people. The first thing she said to me is, "This is a huge relief." And we didn't even know what we were talking about yet, but she knew that that was true. And somewhere inside herself, she'd been concerned that she was going to have to go to heaven or the place we cross over. So, of course, me being me, Elisabet, I have a little bit of you in me. I wanted to go find out where her people were and what they were like. So I saw this line of people, they were showing themselves to me. Really, it was so trite in a way. It was like those old cowboy movies where the Native Americans line up on the bluff. But whatever, I get a lot of visuals, and the visuals help me understand. So I spoke to them and I said, "Tell me about your culture." And they said, and this is so important and inspiring for us all to hear. They said that our reset is to peace. So we have a lot of structures like you have. We have people who act as police. We have people who have problems and, break our cultural norms. We have education. But when there's a problem, everybody agrees, let's get reset back to peace. So if someone is arrested, let's say, everybody is like, okay, how do we get this person, this situation back to peace? I mean, that is such a beautiful, inspiring thing, isn't it?
Yeah. How do we do that here? How do we get that?
I know, I've been thinking about that ever since, but I think it has to do with numbers of people, right? So the more people that we can have aware, I mean, I'm living it in my own life. I'll tell you, after that reading, I thought, I'm not a dramatic person, you can tell, but I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try to spend more time in a neutral or a peaceful, or as Elisabet said, a now state. And if I get in a situation that's dramatic, what do I do to find peace? So I think that's one way it begins, but I think it's pure numbers. If the more of us that can do that, then someday, maybe, hopefully, we can have our constructs, our organizations, our infrastructure, our people infrastructure focused more on that. Wouldn't it be great?
It would be great, but we're so dense and disconnected. And I think maybe it does start, like the saying goes, with us, with each of us. So that's all we can hope for.
I agree. I think hope is the big contribution. Knowing my lineage, my star family, whatever, knowing that there is a bigger and a vaster, and I think that, they've got unity consciousness down, right? Which brings so much peace and relief. And so the more I tap that consciousness, the more I can carry it. And same as you, the channeled experience, Marla, when I really started to get how much more is going on, when I really started to connect with other aspects of myself that are existing right now, it just helped. It's like a near-death experience where you just have like, oh, this isn't the end of the game, It's so relief and peace, that's the direct result of, that's the primary benefit. It's one of the benefits.
Doing that psychic reading, I think it was already headed there, of course, but doing that psychic reading really changed my life, as many of them do, because I get the benefit, thank God, of insights that are greater than I would get on my own. I mean, I try to get insights, I try to advance, I try to be whole and healthy. But yeah, those people, because I saw it, they showed me what happens when they reset to peace. Their whole educational system is built on that. So all of us that are listening right now, we could think about if that would be helpful to our lives and others.
Well, definitely it would be. I mean, that's what we're all here to do, is get to peace. I mean, to reset, to be in that flow. And
Well, these are all also like advanced beings, right? Like the majority of the ones that are benevolent and here to help us. And so in their sophistication, they can work with our systems, they can work with our blocks through our psyche, and they can help activate us to our larger capacity. So then we're contributing that to this collective awakening, right? And so I think that it's peace. And when you, Marla, so beautifully say, you know, those on the call, right? Like the more we can receive upgrades, if you will, you know, our DNA are designed for program updates. That's to me the contribution that makes sense. You know.
well, then maybe if we do know what our lineage is, we can become available to it. I'm just contradicting what I said before, is that it can help us because we have a focus to pull in something unknown that will help expand our frequency. There's like a set point to tune to. I mean, yes, Marla, hi.
Well, you know, I say this every single show, Ellen, but this is why it's so important you're doing what you're doing, because you're
Why?
giving us a
Once again.
voice to share our upgrades, our awakenings, our experience with the other. So, you know, I always say it every time. Thank you on behalf of us. Thank you for letting us share, but thank you for others.
No, but I'm also, I mean, thank you for saying that, but I'm also doing it for myself because I want a place to share. I want a community that understands me, that we could dissect a new narrative instead of what we're being force fed in the media or in politics. They are trying to first confuse us by saying, yes, there is, no, there isn't. Oh, yes, by the way, there is something out there. And it's like, that's like kindergarten. And then there's people who've had experiences where we're trying to understand what is the direction of these new realities. How do we create a new story out of this unknown moment in history? Don't you think, Elisabet, we're at some kind of threshold, or have we always been there? I know you've been involved for a long time in this, but is it something? Yeah.
We're in the soup big time, in the chrysalis, if you like.
We are.
But, you know, just to build on what Nadi and Marla were both talking about, Marla, when you were talking, I had such a sense of the word presence, that what you were talking about was presence, that when you condense the time space down into it all. I remember a conversation many years ago with my informally adopted son, Puma, who's all over the internet now teaching from the Andes. And he's probably the most highly trained medicine priest in the whole of the Andes, because he was trained from age 3 to 24, which is 21 years of training with his grandfather, who never did anything in public. Anyway, I was asking him questions about what was the meaning of the word pacha. And he was talking about how pacha was time, and then suddenly pacha was space. And well, pacha is both time and space, and it's you in time and in space. And the word we came to eventually was presence, being at that center of everything. And then Nadi, what you were talking about then made me suddenly remember that one of the things I've called myself is a context chaser. And because things can only be understood in context. And I keep saying to people, you cannot understand this whole COVID crisis without understanding the larger socio-political context in human history, right? And a rose is a very different thing to a donkey or to a perfume manufacturer or to a lover. You know, they all see that rose in very different ways. So the context is what gives you the story, in a sense, the storyline. And that's why every science has its story of what is a universe, what is a planet, and then it builds its science on whatever it believes to be the true story of what they're studying.
But what is the context is infinite. If you look at the COVID thing or anything, it's always infinite.
Well, that's what I mean by being a context chaser, is you get to holography. You get that everything is always embedded within the next larger context and the next larger. And then you look at the relationships between everybody's bubbles and things like that. So it's more like the nonlinear way of communing rather than communicating, if you like, that we limit ourselves to these linear ways of seeing things, and they're much more holistic. So for me, if I look at COVID, I immediately think of what was Germany like in the 30s and what was somebody in ancient history doing in Atlantis when they had a crisis. And right. Anyway, I think it's fascinating to think of lineages, ET lineages, just as one more expansion of your soul knows all of these lineages. But while I'd been used to thinking in terms of biological and karmic lineages, I hadn't thought in terms of the obvious next holarchy is the cosmos, right? So our cosmic connections is what our lineage is, right?
Yeah, because we're not isolated, even though the illusion is isolation for a human, but I'm sure we incarnate from different realms.
Now, let me just add that for me, incarnation, I see my incarnations as a lotus flower, right? There's a core soul that wants to explore certain questions, and then it incarnates in all these different times and bodies and stuff like that, each of them like a petal on a lotus, because I used to do a meditation where I called in other incarnations to say, am I doing my part? Right? So I would look at an ET lineages in the same way. Can I call in my ET relatives to sit with me and say, am I doing my part?
Wow.
Does that make sense, Marla, the way you look at the whole kind of spirit realm, that it's all aspects of different things as opposed to linear in a sense?
I do, because how else can we explain, or how else can I explain when I do a psychic reading, how I'm getting information from the past and the future and I'm not bragging at all, but clients have told me that I'm very accurate about the time frame, which I try actually not to give too much time frames, because we know that things can change or whatever. So I try to give a time frame of like weeks or even months. So, but I try to do months more than days or anything. And my clients actually recently have told me that I'm really accurate in that. Now, how can that be? How can it be? I mean, we know how this sort of stuff works. Oh my God, Ellen, can I give an example?
Because there's great examples of this in remote viewing practice, but also
Yes.
give us your example. Yes.
Well, it's kind of I don't even know if it's the right example, but I'm going to tell you the story anyway. Okay, so this just happened to me 2 years ago and this week. Two years ago, my beloved dog, Pippi Longstocking, passed away. And she was a long-haired German Shepherd and the love of my life, and a comedian and a mastermind criminal. But we had a lot of communication after she died. And she told me that she was bringing a dog to me, and she showed me the picture, and she had the dog stand against my leg so I could see how tall it was. She was bringing a petite, small German Shepherd, the classic. And I just want to say that what I want is a super long, like the longer the hair, the better. I am dying for a red and black long-haired German Shepherd. That's what I want. So I told her I didn't want that dog. I didn't care how intelligent she told me it was, how this, how that. I was like, I don't want that dog, which wasn't very polite, by the way, when somebody goes to the effort to tell you they're going to bring you something. So it's been 2 years, and I thought, well, obviously it's not going to happen. Except this weekend, I'm with a friend of mine, and she and I found on the streets this exact dog, down to the markings, down to the personality, down to the size, everything. Okay, now here's my question about time. So this dog is young. It can't be over 2 years old, which maybe means that it wasn't even born yet when Pippi Longstocking told me she was bringing this specific dog. So we're way out of the realms of time. I mean, how did she know that this puppy had a good upbringing? It's very stable mentally. It hasn't been abused. So sorry to go on, but did Pippi Longstocking see this event that was going to happen? I didn't expect to be staying with my friend, etc. I could go on, right?
Well, I'll tell you a story Russell Targ talks about when they were doing the Stanford Research Institute remote viewing exercises. There was a really amazing remote viewer, Pat Price, and they sent Hal Puthoff out to some location to find a location. He didn't know where he was going to go. And Pat and Russell were getting hungry, and they said, oh, let's go to dinner or lunch. And Russell said, well, they haven't found their location target for your remote view. And he goes, this is what it is. And he drew a picture of them somewhere, or a dock or a bridge. And they went to lunch, and Hal was still driving around looking for a place. An hour after Pat Price said it was there, they finally find the place. And they call it in, they say, we're here. And Russ or Pat says, we've already got the location, and this is where we are. And they said, yes, how'd you know that? We didn't even know we were going to be here until 5 minutes ago.
Interesting.
How does that work? I mean, and I've done that in my remote viewing classes. I had people remote view a target that I didn't even know was going to be the next target. And they would, or I'm saying, okay, for the next target, where it's going to be in a book that will be on someone's shelf, and then someone opens the book, and some people get that. I mean, so yeah, is there time and space already decided on some level? And I don't have the answer. Do you, Elisabet or Nadi, understand how that, because I'm sure you've had experiences, Elisabet, where times just kind of folded and you knew the future, or whatever, someone knew it, and you've had
a couple of times I've read things that I found out later hadn't been published at the time that I read them.
I mean, they didn't exist.
Wow.
They
Two
didn't
very
exist.
specific ones. One was a whole book, and I remembered the details of when I saw it because I was with my cousin who was pregnant, and I knew how pregnant she was and stuff. And then I would hunt for an earlier publication, and there wasn't any. And I've had time expansions where I did, stuff that should have taken an hour and a half in 10 minutes, discovering that only 10 minutes of clock time had gone by. One of them was in Assisi, and the other one was in Delphi. So they were both very sacred places where I guess time folds more easily. So I'm used to, that kind of weird. So, but what came to mind really in what you were saying was, we're connected with all these other beings who are paying attention. And whether they know it as clock time or not, they know energetically when to connect you with the dog at the right dog in the right space, right? And they don't have to know anything about linear time to do it.
Because I think this dog is only about a year old, which
By the
means
way, Marla, have you read, do you know J. Allen Boone's books?
No, should I write this down?
My God, yes. Kinship with All Life.
I don't know anything.
Wait, what's the author's name?
J. Allen Boone, but it's Allen.
Okay.
Boone as in Daniel Boone, and he's actually a descendant of Daniel Boone, or was. He was known as the St. Francis of Hollywood. And his first book, I have all 4 of his books, and they're all out of print because of how many copies I've bought and given away. But
what's the name of the book? What's the name?
the book in question is Kinship with All Life. And it's the story of Strongheart, who was the first movie star dog in Hollywood and is a German Shepherd, and taught Boone communion. And you will just eat this up. It's so, I have him on my wall behind the Real Me room here, pictures of Strongheart. And I got books on eBay of old daguerreotype photos of this 1920s and 30s dog in Hollywood. So it's delicious, just the story of how he taught Boone communion and how Boone, he writes so beautifully, almost Victorian language, where he talks about once the communion is established, that it was like a mental bridge between us. And if I ever raised my end of the bridge slightly, like me man, you dog, it stopped. I had to keep that bridge absolutely level for the transmission. And then he'd say, and once I got it, we could spend hours a day in the deepest philosophical conversations, not as man and dog talking to each other, but as the universe talking us to each other. And wow. It's gorgeous writing. His other books are The Language of Silence, in which a monkey teaches him to peel people's emotional makeup like monkeys peel bananas very carefully.
I'm going on eBay right after this show.
It is actually on Amazon thrift books. You get a paperback for $3.99. It looks like.
There you go.
I'll dovetail on that. Oh boy,
tell us, Nadi.
Yeah, I think
I've long called him my guru, and of course, God is dog spelled backwards.
Right.
Yeah. I think this is another reason for tapping into the those benevolent sources, right? Because they're outside of time. Where time is a prison, and it keeps us from seeing the interconnectedness, the synchronicities, and the simultaneity. And it also keeps us from, you can figure out how to access the Akash, right? But the animals and lots of people can access the Akash. I think, Marla, you've talked about that. But, if you imagine in this realm and it's beyond time, you said at first, you said no to the dog, right? So in part, there would be a match when your consciousness was open, they would be able to see that time. It's not time, but they would match consciousness, which you took the time of a year or whatever to get to that point until the dog would appear. 2 years, right?
Yes,
that's great. Isn't that good, Marla, that Nadi figured out why it showed up 2 years later? If you were ready earlier, you would have manifested that earlier.
Mm-hmm. So and that I wasn't, yes, and that I was in this location.
Well, the universe rearranges itself. You could be in any location, and when you're ready, it appears, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, I have a question, Ellen. So, if the four of us can step outside of time, which we can, does that mean that everybody can step outside of time?
Everyone is outside of time. That's the joke. We're all outside of time. This is the illusion, right? So this video gets shot and seen, and that becomes a forever moment, but it's not we're not those people anymore. We don't exist in time. This is the avatar of time, but we're beyond time, right? Elisabet.
It's like we're at the center point, our presence, and time sort of feeds through us.
Right.
The movie.
Well,
you can totally play with time too. I love messing with it. The Arcturians talk about shifting your consciousness from linear time to perfect timing. And that's really like, we all know this one. We all know the game of perfect timing, but if you have a day where you don't have to follow a clock, and then even as you get more practiced in it, if you have a day where you do need to follow a clock, there is a way to sync up your, sort of non-linear self with yourself and just say, hey, can you handle this? And the perfect timing of just the right flow. I've been playing with that a lot lately. I love bending time because it's just such a, such a prison.
And
It's so
creating your
delicate.
day. What do you want your timeline to look like? Because there's timelines too. But I also want to bring up the ETs in relationship to this discussion, because in Whitley Strieber's, one of his last books, A New World, he says that the ETs exist beyond time. They see it all laid out at once. But what they really love about humans is that we're just, blindfolded to that. We're just going along as if we think we don't know, and they're seeing it. So they love watching us as time-based beings, because we're always so shocked by the next moment or surprise. And it's like, there's nothing that really surprises them. So it's the emotional quality. The times may not change, but this is what Bashar says. It's not what happens to you, it's how you feel about what happens to you that creates the reality. So the events don't matter. It's the emotional, energetic response to the events that matter. And this is what the ETs, I think, find so fascinating about us, is that we're so changeable. So, we don't know what's coming the next moment. How is that? That doesn't even seem possible to an ET.
Right.
Well, Alan, you're talking about the emotion. I think you're absolutely right about what you're saying about the emotional connections.
Yeah.
And what that brings me to ask is, how do what's our role with the enormous amount of fear that's being promoted hour by hour, now year after year already?
Right.
Constant keeping people in a state of fear. And I've stopped, for instance, talking about vaccines, and I only talk about cures, because to try to let people know, there is a curable disease here, and it's cheap and easy, and you can arm yourself with the cures even before you have it.
Yeah.
Just stop being so afraid that we've been made to fear each other, which is so inhuman.
Right.
So that's the big question for me, because I get sunk into this and I say, I don't want to stay in this world, this authoritarian.
Don't let that bother you.
Right?
You're to live your life the best you can, and you're doing a great job. So
I hope you guys can help me, because I'll tell you, this really crippling chronic pain is hard to deal with. I'm good on Zoom.
I'm going to get this healer to work on you, Elisabet. Okay. Maybe
help. And I don't know where that help is coming from, but I know it's somewhere, that there's something I'm still missing here.
Right. Okay. I'm going to get you some help. When I'll email you tomorrow, see what the best time to.
Well, I mean, I don't know what direction that help will come from. It could come from a sudden Arcturian showing up at my bedside. I don't know. I need to work on my trust, that it's there.
Yes, that's the ticket. Yeah, the trust is the block to receiving. But I want to say, I don't want to get idealistic about it, but the Arcturians do encourage a practice, which is before you go to bed and you're in that liminal space, to ask them to be taken to the healing chambers. They are extraordinary in their abilities to heal the assault to our human system. They know that we're dealing with toxins, and it's so many toxins. And yeah, so give it a try. Just do it for you just do it for a little bit of time.
Take her there, Nadi.
I got serious goosebumps from that, Nadi, and I've never had goosebumps in this group before.
Well, there you go. And the way to figure out if it is Arcturian or Pleiadian or Syrian is you ask, and they'll pop in. And so, if you say, okay, Syrians, are you with me? Then, you go into a bookstore and the High Council of Syrian book drops on the floor, so they will directly respond. And if not, then it's a no. But the practice of asking the Arcturians before I go to bed to either just be with them or be in the healing chambers, I usually wake up exhausted. That's my indicator that things are happening. And if I don't ask, I wake up without that. So that's the language. That's how I interpret their presence and their assistance. I don't know what's going on. They love brain surgery. They love intrapsychic, adjustments. They're fabulous. And if you read, I can get the book. It's right here. But if you read, let me get it. I think it's Arcturian Transmissions. But they talk all about the healing chambers and all about how they are able to help restore and regenerate our systems. And I don't mean to make promises, but it's really a great thing to at least ask and maybe see what happens when you ask.
Thank you. Marla, how does
Yeah,
that
Robert Miller. I'll get the book.
how does
Nadi
that
is
feel to
so
you, Marla?
awesome as she steps away. Sorry, Elisabet.
I said, how does that resonate with you? What Nadi said?
Love it. Listen,
I live
I'm
in a tiny
taking
house, so
notes.
everything is very
I'm taking
accessible.
notes.
So this is the book.
Connecting Arcturians.
David Miller. Yeah, he's got a series, but I experienced this book, which is the first book, as like just an active channel of like really talking to them. And as you're reading, they'll start guiding you to go up into the corridor of light and be on the ship and experience the Arcturians themselves. So this is a really great access point. And they talk a lot about the healing chambers. And yeah, it's good stuff. That's part of how it happened.
Will she be able to find?
you know,
She just asks for it. Is that it? You just ask and it comes in that altered state. Is that how you get there?
No, you order it on Amazon.
No, but as far as the healing chamber.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the healing chamber. You're in that liminal space, and they move with me in sleep. But you can ask. It sounds silly, but like show yourself, right? Like show up, give me signs, let me see if I wake up and I have and I can remember things. Any which way that you want as confirmation. They want to connect with us so much. So if you just open that door, which is an indicator of trust that it actually is available, they just get right in there. So, and then you build on that connection. I know we know these things, but I'm testifying that it's absolutely true in my world.
Alan, I like the house tour here.
Oh, I'm just finding a quiet place to stay, at this beach house.
Did I ask you last time whether you're near Lake Mohonk?
Oh, I was up in, I was more on the east side of the Hudson. Isn't Mohonk on the west side? But right now I'm at the beach on Long Island, actually, right now.
Oh, I see. Okay, you're not upstate New York.
I left upstate, but Marla, but I'll get someone to also help you. But Marla, you had an exercise that you said you want to kind of do here too. Be the bridge.
Be the bridge. If you want to do it, I don't know that it. Okay, can I tell a story first?
I love your stories. They are.
No, I'm sure they're not interesting.
No, they are great. Your stories are really great.
But I started out both as a psychic reader, but also an energy worker. And I used to do both at the same time, which was very entertaining, but it was a little tiring. But I discovered that my hand chakras could be a huge influx of energy, which we all know if we've experienced energy work, it can be at least a temporary pain reliever, if not be really healing, because it takes you down to that state. But also I discovered that my hand chakras could do surgery. And this I was a little concerned about because Alan knows I'm like so ethical, and I don't want to do anything that could be damaging or misinterpreted or whatever. But I used to let my hand chakras go and let them do what they needed to do. I mean, I call this, in my world of the 10 psychic senses, I call it psychic hands. But the hands know where to go and they know what to do down to the cellular level, really.
Could you work on Elisabet now?
Yeah, well, that was in person, but of course I could. I would love to, Elisabet.
What do you want to do it now? Or you want to do a session like at some other point?
Yeah, I'd like to do a session, Elisabet. I would be honored to help in any way I could. Okay, what was the question, Alan?
No, no, you said you wanted to do an exercise, but you're.
Oh, yeah.
But Elizabeth, wait, Elizabeth, are you good with Marla doing some psychic surgery?
Yes, I'd love it. I really appreciate the offer, Marla. My email is elisabet@sithourus.com. So if you spell my
Okay.
name the way it's on the screen, it's my first name at my last name.com. Get in touch. And I'm really, really enjoying today, Alan, and thank you so much. I'm not going to be able to stay for a whole 90 minutes, but
That's
I would
okay.
love to have Marla do her whatever the bridge exercise is.
Oh yeah, why don't you do that, and then you can leave or we can continue, whatever you want. I'm so happy you're here because you
Me
have
too.
so much to share, Elizabeth.
I'm
What?
feeling incredibly good energy today and, among us. This is lovely, Alan.
Oh, great, good. Thank you,
Now,
Nadi.
Elizabeth, can I just confirm your email? It's Elisabet.Sithourus. Oh,
Elisabet at
okay.
Sithourus.com.
Okay. Yeah, I knew I had that wrong.
Sithourus.com is my domain. So Elisabet.
Got it. And could I just give you mine really fast?
Yes.
It's Marla at marlalombard.com.
Okay.
And that way, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? And
Of
that
course.
way we'll be sure to connect.
Of course, everyone listening will also have your emails too,
Yep.
which I guess okay.
Elisabet, before you go, I want to add one thing. Or were we going to do, Marla, the rainbow exercise?
The bridge, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Just-
I think,
just-
we're kind of, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We're kind of off on the subject of healing. So I don't know that Be the Bridge applies because it's about connecting universal energies with earth energies.
I
but
think
we can
it
do
does apply, yes. I mean, what were
Okay,
you going to say, Nadi, though, before that?
No, I think we're in that vibe. Go for it.
No, but what you had something to say, I think was interesting.
I love the presuppose.
Hi.
So I'm honored. One of the things when we were going back from in the beginning of, why is it useful to connect, or I think Marla was saying these calls are so great, and the whole theme of activating, whether it's through advanced civilizations or through energy work, just getting at the larger or multidimensionality, I like to say. But I here's a direct example of why I think these calls are so important, and us putting ourselves out there and having these conversations. And my guess is we can all relate to this, but I have been, being able to join Alan on a bunch of these different roundtables, and then on the hybrid conference, just a bunch of ways. I had this human track me down and say, I want to ask you some questions, some things. And we had the most amazing hour and a half. We had this drop in. We both had this incredible activation, and it was such a gift to both of us. And then this uplift, like we're carrying this huge heart vibration, and we're just sharing that. And I think that that's my main motivation for accessing any sort of support that's here to help me broadcast on the invisible levels so that we all respond and we're all activating each other, and that's how this would happen if it's going to happen. So that to me, that sort of incorporates everything and motivates, that there are these younger ones at this point, which is so fun to say, but there are the ones just stepping into it, and there are the ones, whether they've been 40 some odd years of not being able to function in the society, like just it is weird here for the star kids. It is totally weird. And so when they can see someone who can speak these languages and doesn't necessarily say, hey, I've got all the answers, but that we are an access point. Alan's been doing this for so long. People know that they can reach out to him for a resource. And so that to me is my motivation, because these ones coming on the planet now, right, they are evolved and advanced, and that's some ET interventions. But I just wanted to, that was a reflection I had from earlier that I think we're all in service of,
Oh, that's great. Well, that puts us in place to be the bridge, doesn't it, Marla?
Right.
It does. So this is a short, very simple little exercise that everybody can do. Now, I call it an exercise, but really it's just a way to create a spiritual moment. So we're just going to use our bodies for 1 minute to connect the loving energies of the universe and the earth. So I got this doing a psychic reading for a client, and I just thought it was so amazing that I'd love to share it. So
Yes.
just first of all, keep it physically very comfortable. We don't have to do it for a long time, and people get very perfectionistic and think, okay, I have to do it an hour. No, 3 seconds of this is really powerful. And
As long as you want, we could do it longer than 3 seconds.
we can,
Well, Elisabet is needing to go also, but not that you would, but I feel totally concerned about your body right now. Sorry.
yeah. And yes, there's no reason to stand or sit in one position for a long time. I mean, we can just be the moment, be the bridge. So all we have to do is, if you're standing, which we're not, we're all sitting. So from the sitting position, if your feet can reach the floor, great. If they can't, think with your feet to the floor, think to the floor. And we're just gonna, step 2 is just breathe a little bit. That always helps everything, because we forget to breathe. And then just lift your arms. You can lift them halfway, or you can lift them all the way to the sky. It doesn't matter. The intention here is that we're connecting with universal energies. So in this position, you are, in this moment, the bridge between the universe and between Earth. And so you just let whatever energies happen. You let whatever thoughts happen, but it doesn't matter what we're thinking. It's just our intention to be the bridge between the universe and Earth. And that's it. Isn't that simple?
Yeah. Did that come to you how did that, I mean, yes, I've often thought about that we are the bridge, but I mean.
Yeah. And I think it's good to just take a moment and just acknowledge that. I mean, feet on the earth and hands up to some degree. As Nadi, I saw you were going at it, like going at it, I didn't mean that, but doing it in this position, like, great. You don't even have to be in a certain position. You can just think it, feel it, know it. But yes, they gave it to me for a client during a psychic reading. And she was always thinking that she had to connect the 2 places by meditating for 15, 20 minutes, by sitting or standing in a position. So I asked what would be best for her, and that's what I got. And I have it written down with a little image and everything. I'm happy to send a PDF to anyone who wants it. Just Marla at marlalombard.com, or go to my website, marlalombard.com, and I'll send you a PDF. But it's so simple. We just did it right now too.
Right. Thank you, Marla. You have to leave? Thanks so much for next week.
I do have to leave. And Nadi, I will have, is it connecting with Arcturians or connecting Arcturians?
Connecting with the Arcturians.
I'll
David
have
Moore.
it by tonight.
And he's had it's a series, but I really think this one, the first one, is the way to go.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mahalo,
Yes,
mahalo,
Elisabet,
Hello.
love to you.
Thank you.
Thanks. What a nice community we're creating here, right?
Yes.
Where's Henrietta today?
Henrietta went to England and
For circles?
but what?
For crop circles?
No, to see her mother. But
why does anybody go to England other than circles?
Michael, well, actually, I'm going to go next year. I think I'm going to talk to you about that. I think I got a commission to go there. I'll let you know about.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, please.
And Marla, what do you think the future looks like? If we all see the future, what does it look like to you?
I am so excited about the future.
Really? Okay.
I
What
am.
Wow. Awesome. Lay it on me. I want that.
I am. And you know what? I have gone through the turmoil that everybody else has gone through this last year and a half and years before that. I've not sailed through it. I'm not telling you that I have risen above it all. But the future, I think technology, like it is right now in this moment, is really going to become more advanced and more our friend. I know people worry about it, but I just see technology and human life really helping one another. And I can't wait for that. I think that we're going to get better at making a place for people like us, actually. And people, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering if you think the ETs, whatever technology they're using, are will assist. Are they assisting in this technological bridge?
Oh my God, we're still here because they're assisting. I mean, that's my view. Like, yes. Mm.
What do you think, Marla? What do you get?
Yeah, well, my answer when you ask me the question is like everybody's helping.
Right.
Like, yes, definitely ETs. I think that I think we have the attention of many in the universe, whether it's interdimensional or ETs. I mean, to me, they're kind of the same thing. I don't know. I mean, I as I told you before, I know when I'm getting an ET transmission. And I think I understand when I'm getting an interdimensional, but I think that yes, Alan, they're watching, which to Elisabet's point, watching and paying attention and being present is a huge help. If they're just watching with presence, we can be so grateful for that. I'm sure there are technological downloads, but I think most of them have already happened for a while anyway, and that we just have to execute what we've gotten. I'm not getting technical downloads, but people certainly are. And I think the film industry helps with that. I think people who are able to think a little bit ahead or maybe getting downloads themselves, I don't know. But, they show us what's possible in movies in terms of using technical whatever. So I think we have a lot of help coming. I think that the breakdown of the patriarchal systems that have been in place are hugely helpful for people finding their purpose, people being able to act on their purpose. I mean, it's a crazy time. I'm just going to use the art world, which I used to work in as an example. But even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the only way you could become a successful artist was to get a gallery that would create your career for you. They weren't just promoting you. They were making sure that an artist got in the right museums, that their work got in the right private collections, right? That they got the right PR. So that was the only way to go. And what percentage of artists did that help? I mean, less than 2% of all the artists in the world. I mean, that's the figure, right? So here's my point about this. Now that system no longer exists. I mean, I have a friend who, let's say 5 years ago, was with one of the most chic, powerful galleries in New York, and they did literally nothing. She had to do all her promotion, all her advertising. And in fact, she had to sell her own paintings. There was no help from that gallery system, right? So here's my point. Now, with the advances we've had in technology, even though I think they're pretty primitive, artists are able to sell their work on their own, which is a challenge that I'm not going to go into because most artists are not inclined to do that, or they're not set up mentally and emotionally to do that. It's hard for them. Okay, but here's the point. We're in this complete transition time where artists are just trying to figure it out. right? Have all these venues now where they can sell their artwork. Nobody knows how to do it. I'm not saying that it's helpful or makes artists more successful, but certainly with artists, we are quickly moving to a place where the venues will become more apparent, more consistent, et cetera. So I'm just using the art world as an example that we're setting up new systems. And this is happening. Actually, I think the art world was one of the last patriarchal systems to fall. I don't know why. That's funny to me. But I think we're having that with everything. So even working at home, right? I'm just going to go on for a second.
Yeah.
This is helping people who are more introverted or more who have trouble with outside stimuli, who would have trouble for a variety of reasons, working in an office all day. I mean, there are challenges to work at home. I'm not saying that, but it creates room for different types of people to participate in our economy, right? So these are the kinds of things I'm talking about. We're at this complete in-between place. And I think where we're going is fabulous. You were talking, Nadi, about the star children. And I think that this kind of openness within the chaos will create more room for them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, just about the art, do you know about NFTs?
Yes, I do. Yeah, that's a crazy, wonderful example, isn't it? That kind of came out of nowhere.
I know. Is it just selling? I don't quite understand it. And then we'll get back to the Starseed. But is it just selling a digital copy as your own? Is that what an NFT is, basically?
Yeah, and it's highly protected so that somebody is not just selling it online and everybody can download it or screenshot it. It's protected by layers and layers and layers and layers of computer security. So
you could screenshot anything though, can't you?
Well, yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I think they may have protected against that too. So it's like one painting and the person who bought it.
They have the sole digital copy of that thing. Maybe you're right. There's no way to copy it, but I don't.
Yeah, no, the security is intense. And there's two different ways to go with it. And one uses more energy than the other. So one system is more green and the other is not. Because I mean, just massive amounts of computers.
I'm just saying that's a whole new way of art marketing, like a whole new invention that helps the artists get their work.
The artists. Virtual reality. I mean, I'm just going to make a little side comment here, which is probably annoying to people, but why haven't artists been using virtual reality more? That's a whole different discussion. But I think as we blend technology and humanity together, I mean, think of the medical things that can happen. I think I mentioned that I saw like through one holistic doctor who passed away, that he was working with 3 different teams of doctors. And this was, I don't know, 3 to 5 years ago. And that they were just working like crazy, like as fast as they could and coming up with ideas and then downloading them to people in the medical world who could run with that. And I think, what if that was about COVID? I don't know. I don't know what it was about, but it certainly was to push us forward. So going back to your original question, we have a lot of help.
Yeah. And you were asking Nadi about starseeds?
Yeah. I'd like to hear about this, Nadi, because I don't really know anything.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're at the end of the hour. I mean, it's a huge.
No, it's okay. You can talk.
Well, I can't stay past 5:30 today, but I mean, it's, okay. I'll tie it to the question, right? Because I'm really glad to hear anybody, Marla, who's hopeful. I'm digging out of some pretty dark places about humanity's future these days.
Me too.
And yeah. And the one thing that really does bring me hope are the star seeds and the kids coming in today, because my belief is that a lot of them are a result of hybrid programs, and they're coming in with multidimensionality activated. Like they know they have extrasensory capacities. They have direct recall of former lives. They come in with a mission and an understanding of advanced technologies and science that can help us create devices that'll help our environment. I mean,
I see.
they're fairly tapped and they're very protected from, the civilizations that are invested in the hybridization and bringing them onto this planet for a mutual level of assistance for humanity and, the races that we're interbreeding with. And so that is actually the one area that gives me hope, is because these kids are so advanced. The programming doesn't stick to them. They're not burdened by this earth plane, and they have more freedom to help us shift our consciousness. They come in with such a high vibration. And I feel like my sole mission at this point is to support them coming in, because they need guidance from non-mainstream. They need to know that alternate narratives exist. And I think that's my highest honor, is to be cheerleaders and support them in exploring, when they do. The guy that found me, he had just taken that leap of faith. He'd left his computer science tech world. He was moving into integration and intuitive and process. And I was just able to go like, right on, dude, you're doing it right. And here's all the signals, and here's how to look for it, and here's how to keep going. And so, when they know that people have like not only just made it through that transition, but also are thriving and doing well, and Alan putting these videos out and all the different conferences and the work that you're doing, it is really nice right now to remember that I do have one place of hope. And that's not to put the job on them, because it's reciprocal, right? We are in support and we have laid the foundation. But man, it looks like a real mess, and I get concerned a lot. And
Me too. I mean, that's psychic information that I gave you.
yeah,
That's why I told you that I was not immune to the stresses. I was completely stressed, but yeah. Now, how would I recognize a starseed being, and how old are they? Is there an age range?
Well, Dolores Cannon talked about 3 waves of volunteers, right? And there's been sort of, enlightened folks all along the way that have given us guidance. And sort of coded information for our activation, but the first wave were, Dolores Cannon and, Ramtha, as Alan would say, and, the folks back in the 50s and 60s who were doing this stuff and bringing in the metaphysical consciousness to, humanity's mainstream reality. And then the second wave of volunteers are kind of like me, like us. Like this second age range of 40 to 60 to 70, somewhere in there. We're the ones who sort of rode on the coattails or something.
Yes,
They
laid
the foundation.
Yes.
Right. So we're doing that. And now the third wave of volunteers are really the starseeds coming in, and typically they're just super high intelligence. Lots of times they're socially awkward. Lots of times you would recognize them vibrationally. They come into a room and their presence is extraordinary. They radiate uplifting energies, and there's all sorts of variations, right? A lot of the star kids got diagnosed and medicated in the autism spectrum or the Asperger's. We don't know how to understand these star kids coming in, and they typically don't fit into our pre-established limiting structures. They come in and they're like, what is this sensory overload? Nothing makes sense. And so they don't behave the way they don't behave. We can't recognize their behaviors as a higher frequency. We simply judge them by our limited capacity and limited constructs, right? So then we pathologize them, medicate them, diagnose them. So that's what I mean. Many of them have to dig out of this process of being judged and stigmatized and internalizing the message that they are crazy and that there's something wrong with them. And one of my passions is to go around and say, there's actually nothing wrong with you. It's us that couldn't understand beyond a third dimensional reality. Mm-hmm. So the new ones, you'll call them there's still indigos, there's stars, crystals, rainbows. These are just our best attempt to describe these really advanced kids coming in. So I guess that's how you would recognize them, as they're atypical, their energetics are, noticeably different and inspiring. Stuff like that.
I love the way you talk about things.
Oh, great.
Well, there's a Starseed conference coming up the end of October, Portal to Ascension. Do you know that, Nadi?
Yeah, you bet. I'm in.
Maybe you could get on. Maybe I'll put you on the Starseed panel or something.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be fabulous. I'm getting tight with Neil. I'm going to put on a crop circle call next Tuesday at 3:00. That'll be, I think you said that you stream that also on your channel.
Oh yeah, I want to be, yes. I stream that on this channel. So next Tuesday at 3. Okay.
Next Tuesday at 3, I'm just going to be doing my, my crop circle talk, and, really just very, how did you say that, Marla, when you were talking about your dog, an escape artist? You used 2 words that one of them I loved.
Criminal mastermind.
Criminal mastermind, right? So that's too harsh, though. What was the other word?
A comedian.
Okay.
She was a comedian too.
Yeah.
She was way ahead of me, way ahead.
Yeah.
Faster, smarter. Yeah.
Yeah. So not criminal mastermind, but it's a very covert exercise, because I'm just flashing crop circles, and meanwhile they're doing all the activation. Like, I sit here talking about it, you don't even have to listen. What's that?
Through symbols and or energy.
Oh yeah, these things are so advanced. They are coded technology that just by looking at them activates our consciousness. So it is so fun to talk about them and just have people staring at all like it's just a rolling slideshow. And they are so phenomenal that they do the work,
I agree.
So I'm excited about
patterns shift our neurological perceptions, and these crop circles are patterns that create.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's great. No, that's
Get excited. That's true.
It's really exciting.
Because
yes, well, maybe you'll come with me and Nadi to England next year. Have you ever been in a crop circle, Nadi?
I have not been in one. And, I went and ordered Barbara Lamb's book, right, with Judith Moore, I think. And she's been doing it like you have for decades. And that was the first, before I was like, oh, I can be in them, in a esoteric, multidimensional way. I can go there and teleport, essentially. But they also transcend time and space. So you can look at one right now that was made 20 years ago, and you're going to get the energy. But reading Barbara Lamb's book was the first time I wanted to go. So I would love to go with you.
Okay, maybe we'll do that. I met Barbara Lamb in a crop circle, actually.
Oh, God.
We met outside of Avebury. Next year, you too, Marla, and everyone listening, we're trying to organize something, me and some other people. So,
okay, can I ask one question? Because I'm putting it in my phone right now. Okay, Nadi, when is your video?
Yeah, so it'll be a talk through Neil's Portal to Ascension, and he will broadcast to his base, right? So the link, I think, comes through Portal to Ascension, but then he and Alan are linked. And so it's my first time broadcasting live, maybe Alan can say, but I will be going through that channel next Tuesday, the 31st at 3:00 Pacific time. And I don't know, it'll be like an hour and a half or something.
Okay, I just
want to be on New Realities as well. So,
okay.
So just subscribe to this channel, and you'll get everything coming up.
Yeah, and it's a free call. It's like you just tune in on YouTube or on New Realities, and it's only an hour. And there's the interface, you can post questions and everything. But I'm just going to be talking about the basics, both the biophysical anomalies and the metaphysical aspects. I mean, they're endlessly fascinating.
They are. You have a good grasp of the whole thing too. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Marla.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll all do this again next week. Okay.
Yay.
Sounds lovely.
Thanks. And
I'm going to work on getting Sean in the schedule. So you've been wanting Sean as Bjorn Hargen.
Yes.
Everybody's coming back online now. It's September. Like August is still that. checkout
September.
time. So I will check in with him and get
And
him.
there's a Starseed conference I'll let everyone know about at the end of October, Portal to Ascension.
Yeah.
And then there
Marla,
was another thing you were going to let us know about too, once a month.
once a month, besides, a
The
healing,
other,
a healing salon. Yes, I'll let you know about this healing. I'll send that to
there
you.
was a
in
round
email.
table. There was a once a month round table, right?
There was
Isn't
a
that
round table, a channeling round. Oh, you've been on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so much. I'll track it down.
You're
But
just doing so much, Alan. It's great. Well,
Yeah,
fortunately,
okay,
we'll see
Alan.
each other again.
Now
Yes.
is the moment to say that you're amazing.
okay. Thank you. Thanks. I'm just
Absolutely.
doing my part here. Thank you for
I
that.
know, but you're amazing.
I don't that but I think that word should be outlawed because I don't know what it means. If you tell me how that is amazing, then I'll be able to relate. How you have to be. I mean, I thank you, and not me. But what does that mean? How does that? How do I understand that?
Well, you are a force. First of all, the stamina and energy you have, that is amazing. But you are the example that we could all look to for one truly living their purpose and enjoying it.
I think I mean, thank you, but I think Nadi and you definitely are doing the same thing. You're living your purpose.
Well, and
I'm finally starting to enjoy it.
But by that example, I'll just join in Marla's appreciation. By that example, you or we encourage other people to be living their purpose as well, right? So that's the application, right?
And it's not always easy, but Alan, you make it look easy.
Well, it's easy in a way. I mean, I just do it. It's just like.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Your complete inspiration, your inspiration to me, and I'm sure
Oh,
to
thank you, Marla.
no, you bring energy and joy into my life, Alan.
Oh, that is sweet. I mean, and we've never met, so. But you're great. I mean, I love your enthusiasm. And Nadi, I always loved her enthusiasm, but you're like a child. But thank you. And I'm not trading compliment, but I also want to say there's that really great enthusiastic part of you both, really. So
Thank you so much.
Crew. Yeah, good crew. Thanks for holding
so let's
space.
do it again next week.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Marla.
Talk to you soon.